kind of revisit that. It's like what's the situation now? And it's not, it hasn't changed much. It actually, in some cases, it got worse.
Landline now, welcome back. We are into the month of June, and that means it's time to talk about a new issue of Landline magazine. Associate editor Tyson Fisher and senior editor Mark Schremmer join me now. Thank you, gentlemen, for coming in.
Yeah, thanks for having us.
Yeah, thank you.
Tyson, I want to start with you. You touched on an interesting topic that was on weather and what truckers should do if they find themselves in the midst of a storm.
Yeah, this is kind of an update to a story that I wrote about 10 years ago. Kind of see on a similar topic. Where are there shelters along the interstates? So, most truck drivers are on the interstates. That's where you're going to encounter a lot of storms. So, if you find yourself, you're driving in especially like a rural part of the interstate, and there's this major storm, what do you do? And then 10 years ago, I kind of reached out to various state DOTs, within the tornado alleys, what it's called, and back then. There was only 2 states that had publicly owned storm shelters, specifically storm shelters, and that was Texas and Kansas. And so in 2016, Texas had 19 storm shelters. There was usually within the rest areas. They had like separate rooms specifically for it to shelter in. And Kansas had 30, and they had one at each of their toll plazas. So kind of revisit that. It's like what's the situation now? And it's not. It hasn't changed much. It actually, in some cases, it got worse. So, and it's still just 2 states. It's Texas and Kansas. In Texas, they upped it to 30, so from 19 to 30. And so, like a couple of years ago, they had a big renovation program for their service areas, and in that renovations was to include the storm shelters. They're really cool storm shelters. And one of those was actually just recently used a couple of weeks ago. There was like a tornado that was headed towards this rest area, and the people who were there were in the storm shelter, was designed for. Kansas, however, again, 2016, there was 30. Now there's only 6. And the reason why is because since then, Kansas has gone to cashless tolling. So all those toll plazas are gone, and then therefore so are the storm shelters. And so when it comes to like, what do you do, pretty much there isn't anywhere you can go on the interstate. I mean, the most you can really do, and this is so I talked to a couple people at the National Weather Service, and they said, first of all, just stay vigilant on what the weather forecast is, just kind of look for, what the severe weather is going to be. If you can see, and it's like nowadays we have all these weather apps, your phones notify you. I know we all get, the National Weather Service will send you alerts to your phone, similar to those Amber alerts, the really annoying sound that we get. But they'll let you know when there's like severe weather or even a tornado warning. So when you get those warnings, the advice is just to pull off the highway and kind of seek shelter, whether it's a truck stop or anywhere. Churches usually will let you in. There's various places you can go to. But in the event that you find yourself, you can't go anywhere and you just have to pull over the side of the road and you do see like a tornado or something like that, what do you do? And the only thing you can do is get out of your truck and lay low on the ground. That is the advice you can get. Yeah. Not exactly ideal, but that's pretty much all you can do. The one thing that Texas DOT said not to do is to go under a bridge. So there used to be like this common wisdom to go under a bridge or to find like a sturdy structure and seek shelter in there. You don't want to do that because tornadoes can take down a bridge pretty easily. And so the general takeaway here is that find a sturdy structure is the first thing to do. Find a sturdy structure. If you can't find a sturdy structure, then you go lay low. If the low area is flooded, which could be the case, then the worst case scenario is just to get inside your truck and then hope for the best.
Buckle up.
Pretty much. But, truck drivers are in a unique position because you're supposed to go in your vehicle and lay low in the vehicle to stay away from the windows that will, smash with the high winds. Truckers have an advantage because of the sleeper cab, so you just, hunker in your sleeper cab. But, I mean, the thing that's worth noting is that most rest areas have a building of some sort. That is a sturdy structure. Worst case scenario, find the nearest rest area and that will work. But I mean, Yeah, there's this there was a viral video that went out a couple weeks ago of two tractor trailers driving into a tornado. I don't know if you guys have
Yeah.
seen this. So when I was talking to the people at the National Weather Service, that wasn't one of the recommended things to
Yeah.
do, is to drive into a tornado. And so, yeah, when you see a menacing storm, and this was the pretty enlightening thing that I found out, was that the weather experts say that just because you have weathered one storm doesn't mean you'll make it through another. Each storm is unique. So if, a couple days ago, you drove through a really bad hailstorm, you made it through successfully, all right, good for you. But if tomorrow you come across a similar storm, there's no guarantees it's going to have the same patterns. There's no guarantees that there won't be a tornado. So just don't be too confident that you'll make it through any individual storm. Kind of prepare for the worst, and then just pull over, find a safe place. Don't try to be a hero and go through a severe storm.
Yeah, it's a really scary situation for truck drivers. This topic kind of hits close home to me. I grew up about a half an hour away from Joplin, Missouri, and if anybody remembers, 2011 they had a terrible tornado there. I think there was recently a Netflix documentary that they just came out about that, and it's. To think that that they don't have anything in Missouri after that, and there's also been devastating tornadoes in Oklahoma, and for growing up where I did, everybody you have a basement, you do all of these things, and these truck drivers are very vulnerable going through this. But you would just think that all of these different events that we've had over the last decade or so would make this, a push to have more accessible, safe shelters for anyone for these sort of situations. And hearing that Kansas has actually pulled back on it is definitely frustrating. But yeah, the key is, I guess, that information. Don't ignore those annoying sounds of those warnings, as Tyson mentioned, and really look at that forecast every day, especially this time of year, that springtime or whatever, when it's those conditions are very likely, in Kansas, Missouri, Oklahoma, Texas, those kind of prime states. But we've seen them in Alabama and some other places too that have had some tornadoes and different areas too. So definitely be vigilant, going across those areas.
Switching from the dangers of storms, let's talk about the danger of bigger trucks. Mark, I know you wrote about this, a recent study that talked about the impact that bigger trucks would have on bridges.
Yeah, and I'm starting to realize that this issue has got a lot of, dangerous stuff that we're talking about.
It's a dangerous segment.
And so one of the things that stood out to me with this, we've talked about this issue of, OIDA and a lot of people being against the idea of increasing the weight limits and the sizes of trucks because of what they do with bridges and our highways, kind of crumbling infrastructure and all of those things. But what it really kind of hit home to me were recently, we were interviewing a leader for the National Association of County Engineers. And, I don't want to use hyperbole or anything, but, quoting him is basically saying, if you want to put heavier trucks on the roads and bridges, you're asking for some sort of catastrophe at some point. And that's where it is. This is, you talk about these are the groups and people that know, and they're saying if we do this, it's not just something that truckers don't want or whatever. I mean, there's some definitely economic ramifications and all of that stuff to it as well, but this is a dangerous situation. The grade cards that that they put out for our roads and bridges aren't good. We've seen catastrophic events already in recent years regarding this sort of thing. This is something that is really a recipe for disaster if we keep on moving toward that and trying to just make these trucks heavier and heavier, while also not really addressing the crumbling bridges and roads that we already have. So
Yeah, I think that when it comes to heavier trucks, it's very much like the driver shortage myth, in that the only people who really believe in that are the mega carriers.
Yeah.
And even then, I think they understand it's a bad idea. They just can't say that out loud. So, yeah, I can't think of any group outside of the mega carriers who would want heavier trucks. And now you have the engineers saying that, just kind of just, supporting how dangerous they are. Yeah.
Yeah. So actually, this also brings back to so there was a House hearing in recent months where they kind of talked about this issue. OIDA Executive Vice President Louis Pugh was on that. Obviously, it was opposed to heavier trucks. There was a representative kind of with the ATA that was for it, but and there was also a representative with the Teamsters that was opposed. And to me, this one was a little surprising, but also shows how problematic it is. Even the representative of the Truckload Carriers Association was opposed and saying how problematic it would be. So even sometimes some of those that you would look at as kind of the large carriers representatives that you would think might be pushing for this, even some of those realize the dangers that we have here.
Our next story, it's only dangerous, I guess, if you fall for it. And that's on recent scams of text messages coming in for unpaid tolls. I know I've received a few of these. The ones I love are from the states that don't even have toll roads. I'm like, people doing the scams, like, do a little bit of research. But Tyson, I know you talked about this.
Yeah. So, these are popping up left and right. I know a couple months ago we reported one of the first ones. It's like, well, that's interesting. And then a couple weeks later we got another one. It's like, huh. And then just every week there's a new one. It's like, what is going on here? And I guess it's big business, these toll scams. But you mentioned, most of these are coming in the form of text messages. But one that we got recently, we didn't find out by a press release or anything like that. It's because I personally got an email from the Indiana DOT. Specifically, is from the Indiana DOT subscription service. And trying to make a long story short, I get their press releases and I get an email from a verified Indiana DOT email address saying that I owe money for a Texas tag toll, which I haven't been in Indiana or Texas recently. So something was weird. But the thing that caught me off guard was this was an official Indiana DOT email address. And when you look at the hyperlink for the Texas tag, it was texastag.org. But when you hover the mouse over the hyperlink, it was to like texastag.us.xyz, something like that. But turns out that the Indiana DOT email server got hacked, and that was from a legitimate. And so they're getting way more sophisticated and I almost got duped into it if it wasn't for the fact that I've never been to Texas recently. So, I mean, but to your point, it's like, you have to stay, vigilant with these type of things. They're never going to ask for you for things via text messages. So just kind of just be aware of that.
Yeah. Nobody is immune to this too. Like Tyson mentioned, he got this personally. OIDA recently received some of these sort of things, and we're here at headquarters in Grain Valley, Missouri, and that was supposedly from Missouri DOT about toll roads. The only problem is Missouri doesn't have toll roads, so obviously we were on top of that. But a lot of people might not realize that even in the state that they're in, or you might just think, well, I'll click on that link and find out, what the details are, and then realize, well, now you've been hacked.
Shouldn't have done that. Yeah. All right. Good advice. Guys, thank you so much.
Thank you.
Yeah, thanks.